Hello once again. We now come to the third and final segment of this short series. Man and his relationship with others in society. Okay, I'm going to do a bit of reading in this segment, and as I explained, the camera that I am using to speak to you is above my monitor. So I'm going to make reference to my monitor just below the camera. I'm going to read certain things because I need to present it accurately. Man and his relationship with others in society. This is the most important aspect because we live in society, we need order in society. We have been led to believe that we have acquired and developed the most sophisticated and most appropriate system of governance and government that ever existed, and we call this democracy, and we call this the vanguard of liberty and freedom. And I want to challenge that. We have been told that this is the best model. And the question is it? God teaches us who we are, what we are, and He gives us a model of how we are supposed to exist in society. And it is to serve a particular purpose. And remember, there are basic principles that have to be respected. And if these basic principles do not apply, the teaching could not have come from God. Now, what is the guidance that is given by God, which we are meant to follow and implement in our society to give us the outcome that would be best for us? Before I continue, I'm going to give you 4 definitions. All of them are from Wikipedia. The first one is law. Law is a system of rules, usually enforced through a set of institutions. It shapes politics, economics, and society in numerous ways and serves as a primary social mediator of relations between people. It is something that is enforced through a set of institutions. Now, there is a word called Sharia. It's an Arabic word. This is, by definition, the sacred law or the way. The way of whom? The way of God's prophets. So when we talk about the way of the prophets, we have Sharia, and so you have Sharia of Moses and Sharia of Jesus and Sharia of Abraham and Sharia of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. Today, Sharia is synonymous with the practice of Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him. But Sharia is just the way of the prophets, and that is what we are referring to. And it is different from law. Law is something that is imposed. Sharia is the practice of the prophets. Now we hear of Sharia law. It's a contradiction in terms, but really Sharia law is a form of law. It's got nothing to do with Sharia. Even though some aspects of Sharia may be used in creating the law, it is still a law. It is something that is imposed. It is not Sharia, because Sharia is voluntary participation. There is no enforcement. If you are enforcing something, it is a law. It is not Sharia. Now, what is a nation? A nation is a group of people who share culture, ethnic origin, language, and often possessing or seeking its own independent government. That is a nation. And government is the organization or agency through which a political unit exercises its authority. Now remember, it's a political unit exercising its authority. It is something separate from the people. It controls and administers policy. It directs and controls the actions of its people or subjects. It controls the actions of its members or subjects. It controls it. It is not their representative. It is not their will. It imposes its will upon the people. That is government. Government is not the representative of the people. The people that are elected in government are elected to serve government and not to serve the people. It's a very important difference. Government is a separate entity from the people. Okay, you want more detail, you got to read the book, Sharia, the Best Kept Secret, where it is explained in a bit more detail. I cannot do that in the time frame that I am working on in these presentations. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to look at is how does law differ from the practice of the prophets, because the practice of the prophets is the model that we are supposed to implement in our lives, in our society, which is supposed to be the best model for us. God has given us free will, has made us, created us with free will. He has insisted that that free will not be violated by Him, and He has also insisted that in everything we do not violate the free will of others. There is something really special and important about this free will, and I'm going to come to that next. But first, we are going to look at how law, which is synonymous with democracy, the law that is created by the democratic process, how is this different from the practice of the prophets, the practice that God wants us to follow? Number one, law is created by man. The practice of the prophets is authored by God. The guidance given by God has been perfected, which will persist and remain in its perfected form, and is in this perfected form till the end of time. No change is needed because it is relevant till the end of time. The law of man continuously undergoes changes, and these changes are not for the better. These changes are used to improve government's control over us. Let me explain this right here. There was a time when, in terms of the law, an individual was innocent until proven guilty. Now, don't get me wrong. Democracy is theoretically a great system. Theoretically a great system. But it has many flaws. And these flaws have been exploited and abused. And it has created the opportunity for the entire system of democracy to be turned on its head, so that instead of it truly being a means by which we can come together and protect ourselves, it has become a monster in itself that sits as a god over us. It is no longer our slave, it has become our master. So, law is created by man, and the law keeps changing. Initially, we were innocent until proven guilty. In other words, the innocent person doesn't have to prove anything. It's the person who is claiming that I have done something wrong that's to prove his case. I don't have to prove anything. And if that person fails to prove that I am guilty, I remain a free person. Then it changed to where we are guilty until proven innocent. How else do you expect the fact that a totally innocent person, having done absolutely nothing wrong, can be stopped by a policeman to prove that his vehicle is in working order? In other words, the law has already assumed us guilty, and we now have to prove that we are innocent. In fact, no policeman should ever have the right ever to stop anybody unless that person has already done something wrong. And if he has done something wrong, then there's a right to stop him and to question him, because he may actually not be competent to be on the road, having done something wrong. But if he's done nothing wrong, he has not proven his guilt, there is no justification in stopping him, except if the law has already changed and we are now guilty unless proven innocent. But the law has gone one step further, and now in many instances we are guilty by definition. In other words, if you meet the criteria, you are guilty. There is no defense. And that I have explained in my books. I will not go into detail here. Number two, law is imposed by force, whereas the practice of the prophets is purely voluntary participation. You are given advice, you accept it or you don't accept it. The choice is yours. No imposition. The law is an imposition to everybody. There will be some law which imposes on us. For example, if I walked to work, and work is walking distance from here, and I never traveled in any form of motorized vehicle, then speed limits will be irrelevant to me. But to most people who travel on the roads, and most people who travel safely and at various speeds, the imposition of a speed limit becomes an imposition. We are now forced to do something which we would not normally do. And we do it on pain of punishment, on pain of punishment. Law imposes itself. No matter which law it is forcing certain people to do things that they do not want to do. And they got no choice in the matter. Practice of the prophets is purely voluntary. And people may wonder, how can a society function when there is voluntary abidance to these guidance? The fact of the matter is, the truth of the matter is, most people are just good, ordinary people. They just want to be left alone to lead their lives. And when people are left to lead their lives, they will do that which is best for themselves, and in fact best for their family, and by extrapolation that which is best for their society. They don't go around harming people and killing people and destroying things. This idea that if people were left to do their own things there will be chaos comes out of the mind of those people who control us, those control freaks who cannot see anybody living independently and living his life the way he wants to. They want to make everybody do things the way they want them to do it, and they want to control every aspect of our life. To such a control freak, living our lives the way we want to is a great catastrophe. And so now they have pushed this idea in our minds that if we lead our lives the way we believe is best for us, it will be a great catastrophe for us and for everybody else. That is a lie which we have been brainwashed into believing. God tells us that there will be order in society if we lived peacefully. And in fact, the system that God creates, and this is the most important aspect of the practice of the prophets, which has been called Shariah, is that Shariah insists that the government or the authority that we put in, that we create in order to ensure that there is order in society, submit itself to God alone. And the objective of this organization or this body or this government is to ensure that no individual's free will be violated. It is to ensure that there will be no human being who will come into a position where he can force his views upon others, which is what democracy is, where people come together and force their views on others through a system of creating laws which we are forced to obey. And these laws can be changed at will and at their fancy. The practice of God for us is that we must never allow such a situation to arise. We must never allow ourselves to be subject to another human being. Whoever is in authority must be obeying God's laws, and his objective is to make sure that there will be nobody who forces his view upon anyone else, and his objective is to ensure that every human being can live his life according to his beliefs. This means, for example, you may have watched on television that in a Muslim country, non-Muslims that were eating during the day, during fasting, were reprimanded. That is not Sharia. That is not the practice of the prophets. That individual had never subscribed to the teachings that are followed by Muslims. He had never given the commitment to fast during the day, during Ramadan. He is free to eat. And when a government imposes punishment on such a person, they are imposing a